Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and in today's video we're going to be making some replacement parts for a vintage Transformers G1 Rodimus Prime. Now recently on my channel you'll have seen that I made the front shield for Blurr, which is often missing, and without it, when he's in vehicle mode, he doesn't look that great, and I thought I'd carry on along that line and do the same for the Rodimus Prime figure. Now I know not everybody likes Rodimus Prime, but I actually quite like it as a figure, but he does have a few parts that are very commonly missing. The little fin that goes across the front there, that actually forms the sort of back part of him when he's in robot mode, is always missing, and there are two shields that go on the gun mounts as well, which I never seem to be able to find. So today, rather than hunting them down, I thought I'd just make my own using bits of styrene sheet and some plastic weld. So it's going to be a full day of scratch building, but I think we can make some parts that will really look as good as the originals. So here we have my Rodimus Prime, and as you can see we are missing the fin at the front, and it's quite a key part. In robot mode it forms the sort of the shield part behind the head, but in vehicle mode, if we take this front section out, it sort of really finishes off the look of Rodimus Prime and makes him look like his sort of original early mode of Hot Rod. So that just clips on there. Then we clip this piece in the front, and you can see it does make quite a big difference to his look, but that piece is always missing, and I've tried to find some over the years, but they always sort of go for crazy money, so I thought I'll just make my own. And having sort of made the shield part for this Blurr, I was sort of convinced that I could actually make something more complicated, or sort of more complicated shapes, because this, although a fairly simple looking, actually took quite a bit of construction, but it is just made out of styrene sheet, so I think we can do very similar for this part of Rodimus Prime. But he also has some other bits that are very commonly missing as well. So if we turn him into this sort of attack mode, you open the back of this and there is a gun placement inside that pops up, and on the side of this there should be two little black shields, and again those always seem to be missing and pretty hard to find, and I've found a few pictures of them online, and I reckon we can make those as well. So that is going to be today's project. We are going to make a new fin to go on the front of Rodimus Prime, and we're going to make some shields to go on the gun mount. So we're going to start by making the fin, because I think that's the most key part of the Rodimus Prime figure. And how are we going to go about that? Well, first thing we need is a pattern. So what I've done is I've taken this and some images of the shields into Photoshop, and I've converted them into a pattern that's at the right scale, and we're going to use that as the basis for making our fin. And here is the pattern. So this is exactly to scale, and I've basically done a line drawing of the fin itself, and I'm going to make it in two parts. So we're going to have the main part of the fin, which will be this sort of C-shaped piece, if we look at it like this, and then we're going to have to stick a piece over the top and the bottom to make it slightly thicker, because if we look at the original, you can see it's about 2mm thick for most of it, and then it's about 3mm thick in the middle where we've got this sort of raised area. I reckon we can get it to look very close to this. So this is going to be made out of styrene sheet. So I've got myself a scrap of styrene sheet, 2mm thick styrene sheet, and I've stuck this pattern onto it. And the first thing to do is cut out the main part of the fin. So I'm going to cut out the main C shape. You can see on the edges we've got some double lines. That's where it's going to be slightly thicker. We're going to be cutting to the inner line. So let's get this basic shape cut out and smooth off the edges, and then we'll deal with this middle section. Shouldn't take too long to do, and it will start to look like the fin pretty quickly. And there we go, that's the main part of the fin cut out. I'm pretty happy with the shape of it. If we bring in the original, you can see it's not bad at all. It really does match pretty closely. A tool that I like to use on this, as well as sort of various files and sort of sanders to smooth the edges, is actually just a metal ruler. You can scrape a metal ruler along the edge of this styrene and sort of deburr it, but it also gives it a nice curve. So the edges of these are no longer square, and it's just a really simple way of doing it. I was going to buy myself a deburring tool, and in fact I've been looking at them online, and then I realised just a metal ruler does exactly the same job, and you've got a nice lot of control. You can just sort of scrape it along the edge. So that's all I've done here. We've got the main part of this fin ready, and we now need to make the raised section in the middle. So again, I've just taken that pattern that I've created and I've stuck that onto some 0.5mm thick styrene sheet. I've got to cut out 2 of these because we need a top and the bottom, so I'll just cut those out quickly, and then we can start actually piecing this together using some plastic weld. So yeah, let me cut these out and tidy my desk up, and then we'll start actually constructing this properly. So I now have 2 of these cut out, and they need to be attached to the main fin. We're going to do that with some plastic weld, and when we attach them we want a slight overhang at the front and the back by about 0.5mm, because I'm intending to add a 0.5mm strip along the front edge and along the back edge, because if you look at the original you can see it does sort of jut out a little way. So if we plastic weld these on, get them sort of all lined up, we can then add a little thin strip afterwards. So yeah, let's get the plastic weld out, get these stuck on. And already it really does start to look like the fin. You can see that with that extra little bit of thickness in the middle, it's starting to look like the original piece. So those are now stuck in place pretty firmly, but you can see there's this little overhang. So what I've done is I've cut a thin strip of the 0.5mm thick sheet of styrene, and I'm going to stick that in the gap just like that. Then by the time that's all set, we can sort of file it down and round it off, and then it really does start to look like the original piece. We also need to do that little piece there as well. So again, just a 0.5mm sort of thick strip of styrene stuck in there, and a bit of rounding, and it will really look the part. I've just rounded the edges quickly just by sort of filing and sanding, and you can see that really now does look pretty close to the original. The only thing I haven't done is that little sort of pip on the end of the fin there. I don't really like it, so I've not bothered putting it on mine. I prefer this shape, but if you want to, then I would just stick another little bit of styrene on there and sort of sand it and shape it. But for me, that's always annoyed me, so I'm not going to bother putting that on mine. The last thing we need to do is actually to put this post on. I have some 5mm diameter styrene rod here, which I think will fit nicely in the hole on the top of Rodimus Prime, which it does. So that fits on there. Does it fit on the other hole, which is the one on the back of him? It does. So yeah, we're going to use this. I'm just going to plastic weld a piece of this onto the top there. I don't think we need to be particularly precise where we put this. It's quite near the front, so I'm just going to go sort of quite near the front as well. Just put it there, then I'll cut it to length, and yeah, we can then do a test fit on that Rodimus Prime. That post is now firmly in place, and I've cut it down, just sanded the end a little bit. So let's now do some test fitting. We can try it in vehicle mode. So if I clip that on the front, oh yeah, that clips on really nicely. That's not going anywhere. And that does indeed look like the missing fin. Let's bring in the rear section and put this all together and test to see that it actually fits inside the sort of wing clip area. It does, yeah, you can see there that the fin sort of goes into these areas either side. Yeah. That works really well. Now let's try that in robot mode. So we take that apart, we can remove this fin here. Yeah, rotate his arms out like so. Rotate his head round, and then this should clip in the hole on the back there, like so. Yeah, that is really good. That's a really nice fit, and I think that does look very similar to the original if I just hold up the original there. So all we need to do is paint that, but we're not going to do that just yet. Let's get on and make the sort of shield pieces for the gun section, and then we'll paint everything at the end. But yeah, that is working really well. I'm very happy with that.
toy-polloi. That is incorrect. Try again.
For the shields, we're going to be using some 2mm thick black styrene sheet. And as you can see, I've just stuck the patterns on. And the first thing to do is to actually cut out the sort of basic shape of these. It's going to get a little bit more complicated because we've got to cut these sort of lines in. And I think I'm going to do that with some 1mm thick styrene sheet and sort of stick it over the top. But the first thing to do is actually get the basic shapes cut out. So again, let's just get cutting. We'll cut these out and tidy up the edges, give them a bit of a sort of rounding and sanding, and then we can start adding some of the details. Right, so this is what I've made. This is just the basic shape cut out of 2mm thick styrene sheet, and hopefully that will fit in the side there, which it does. So there we go, that's the sort of basis for one of the panels. In fact, I've taken this a little bit further because I wanted to see if the next part of this sort of project would work. So this is the other one that I was making, and you can see that I've already cut out a piece of 0.5mm thick styrene sheet into this sort of chevron-y warning type pattern. I wasn't sure whether I'd actually be able to cut it and cut it neatly, but I can. I've also put a little strip of 1mm thick styrene sheet there just to make it look like the original. So if we clip this on now, you can see that's what it should look like. So I've got to do one more of these, and it was easier than I thought it would be. This is a 0.5 millimeter thick styrene sheet. So again, I've stuck my pattern onto it, and the idea is I've got to cut out these grey panels, and I just did that with a knife and a ruler, and actually you can cut it pretty easily. And I've got to cut around the edge of it and roll that plastic weld that on, and as I say, just a thin strip of styrene sheets just stuck there just to give it that extra bit of detail. I'm not sure with the originals if they are double-sided. I'm not going to bother making this double-sided. I'm just going to do one side, because by the time this is on sort of Rodimus's truck part, you don't really see the back of it anyway. He will stand here, so I think just doing the front side is going to be plenty. So let's get this other one cut out, plastic welded on, and we'll sort of see what it looks like when they're both there. And there you go, that's those details put on. I'm pretty happy with how they're looking. By the time we give that a coat of paint, you won't notice any of the sort of slight blemishes on them. And that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to take these out to my garage. I have a satin black spray, which will do the shields quite well. I think that will match this sort of finish that we've got on the plastic here. And then I think I have a can of yellow spray paint. I'm not sure. If I don't, I'll have to go and buy something, but I think I have an old can of yellow that may do this pretty well. It needs to match the sort of yellow plastic on the inside of Rodimus Prime, so it's this sort of bright yellow. I'm sure I've got something that's close enough. So let's take these bits out to the garage, give them a few coats of paint, and then we'll see what they look like. So that is everything painted. Here are the two shields with the semi-gloss paint on. And you can see it's hidden most of the imperfections. I think those are looking pretty good. So right, let's try them on the back part of Rodimus Prime. See how he looks. Yeah, that's going to work really well. But the bit I'm most pleased with is this fin. This is looking really nice. The yellow colour I had is not perfect. It was called camel yellow, and it's actually a little bit more orangey, but it does work pretty well with the sort of tones of Rodimus Prime. So let's try it on as the sort of shield part, or the sort of back part in the robot mode. You can see that's looking pretty nice. In a minute I will transform him and we'll take a look at it in sort of vehicle mode. But I think before we do that, we need to sort out some of these missing stickers. In fact, the key sticker on the front of him is missing. So I've actually ordered some from Toy Hacks and they have just arrived. So I'm just going to replace some of the stickers on this one. In fact, I'm going to put a whole load on my Rodimus Prime that I have on display, because you can see he is missing a whole load of stickers. So let's get the stickers on and we'll take a look at him finally once he's all fixed up. And here we go, here is the finished Rodimus Prime. But just adding that sticker on the front really finishes him off, and in fact I've added a whole load of stickers to the Rodimus Prime in my collection, so he is now looking pretty good as well. But what we were really doing in this video was making the fin and making the shields, and as you can see with that fin in place, he just looks complete, and he sits really nicely with the Blurr that I've worked on as well. So this is the handmade shield nose cone for Blurr. Now if we change him into his sort of attack mode, you can see Rodimus Prime there with the fin behind his head, which again just completes that look, and we now have those extra shields to go either side of the gun placement, and again it just finishes off how he should look. These pieces are pieces that I never find, so clearly the best way for me to deal with that is to make my own versions, and I'm very happy with how these have turned out. If you want to have a go at making your own versions of them, then the template that I've created for this project will be available from toy-polloi.com, so go there, download it, print it onto some A4 size paper at 100% and get cutting. It really is a fun project. This has taken me maybe a couple of hours to do, but it's been well worth it, because I've now ended up with a version of Rodimus Prime that I can actually display, and I'm really pleased to have in my collection. If you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Toy Polloi. Subscribe for more great videos.